Welcome back. If you haven't done so already, please log into Office 365. When you log in, it should look something like this. All right, so welcome back to Microsoft Office. And again, today we're going to be continuing with Microsoft Excel 365. When you log in, your home screen should look similar to what I have. And now some of the changes is you will see we have our Excel document included in our list, and including our list of recent documents. So you'll see it up here and also down below. And you'll always be able to tell it by the icon. And then, like I said before, is when I come up with my titles, I like to include the name of the program too, just because they're all jumbled up together. There's also some ways you can organize your files. If you save like all your Excel files into an Excel folder, you can do it that way, or you can do it by project. If you're working on a budget project, you can have your Word documents and your Excel documents in a folder called budget. So different ways to organize things. We are going to create a new workbook. So to do so, I'm just going to do it from my home page. Again, I could click on the Excel icon, but it's a little faster. Just click Create and then Workbook. And it should pop up like this. All right, and if your menu bar, your home ribbon doesn't look like mine, just remember that I turned my little drop-down triangle here to up. So you can have it up, you can have it down. If you have it pointing down, it means it's showing you the abbreviated ribbon. I like to have it all there. Again, the trade-off is you have less workspace down here if you're showing more tools. However, I have found that some of the tools that I need are a lot of times right over here, and they won't show unless you've got it that way. So that's why I like to keep it that way, but it's personal preference. And depending on what you're doing, you can turn it on and turn it off, or make it shorter, make it smaller, or buy a bigger monitor. That's probably what I should do. You can set it up so that you have large monitors all around you on your workspace. All right, so we're going to name this book a new name. It's going to be Excel. I'm going to spell it right. 02. I'm going to put a dash, and this is going to be a balance sheet. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a balance sheet for a business. We're going to take some data off of another sheet and put it into our worksheet here. I'm going to say balance sheets because I'm going to do more than one. And again, I got my name up here. So from the email you received today, you should see this link, Excel 01 Business Balance Sheet. So if you click on it, it should take you to a shared document. Now, as you recall, in Microsoft Word, we had the option of sharing a document where people could only read it and they couldn't change it. In Excel, you have that option too. The problem is if you want people to copy the text, like we do, and the numbers, then you have to make it shared and editable. So that's a little different than Word. Word, you can still get around it. Excel, you're kind of boxed in that way. So if you want them to be able to make copies, then you have to make this available to them as editable. However, if you are afraid that somebody is going to make changes on you that you don't expect, what I would do is save a copy. Remember how we made a copy in Excel and Word? You can do the same thing here. So you call one balance sheet and the second one balance sheet dash shared, and then share the second one. So you have a backup just in case something goes wrong. All right. So if you look here, you'll see we've got Patterson Medical Center, and this is going to be a balance sheet for everybody to use. And it's designed to show how much the company is earning and how much it's costing them to earn that. What we're going to do is we're going to take all this text here and copy it and paste it over into our sheet. Now you'll notice I dragged from the top all the way down, and you can do that. You do have the option of Control A for Control All for all. However, I just did Control A, and you see how much it selected. I mean, it selected a lot. It doesn't really matter because I got plenty of memory in my computer to make copies, and besides, anything from column L on over is just blank space. So in this case, it wouldn't matter. If you were just copying a chunk out of somebody else's, then you definitely want to select it. If when you're selecting from A1 down to J38, which has the last thing we need, sometimes it rolls and it goes too far. So the way to prevent that is something I mentioned earlier. Start at the bottom right-hand corner, in this case, J38, select by holding the mouse down, scrolling up, to the left, and up. And the reason that doesn't overroll, you don't scroll off the page, is because you can't go further than A1. I think I mentioned that yesterday. A1 is as high as you can go. The other way to do it by the keyboard is click on the final right-hand corner cell, Control Shift Home. So Control Home takes you home, Control Shift makes a selection. So there we go, got it all selected. I'm gonna Control C to copy, get the little marching ants, come back over to my balance sheet. I'm gonna paste it at A1. And here it comes. There we go. So I've got a copy now. Now, of course, these two are not linked, meaning if I make changes here, it's not going to affect that original. There are ways later on, we'll show you how to do it. There are a couple advanced ways where you can actually link sheets together. And that's advantageous. If everybody in your office is contributing a certain portion to the sheet, then everybody can update at the same time. And any changes made will be immediately seen by everybody else using the sheets. All right, so now I have my copy, and you'll notice there are lots of pound signs. When you paste it into the sheet, my current sheet just is a standard Excel worksheet, nothing fancy, meaning no extra spaces for numbers. So in other words, the columns aren't stretched out yet. We're going to be doing that now. And we're going to also see that some of the characteristics are lost too. So that's okay. All right. So let's get editing. So the first thing I want to do is go to Patterson Medical Center, and that's located at C2. Now you'll notice that C2 has all three words, but if I look at my worksheet, it's overlapping column D and column E. Well, that's okay. In this case, it's okay because there's nothing in column D or column E. Do you remember yesterday, though, I said that a space is nothing or is not nothing, it's something. So I'm going to start with F2. If F2, I hit the space bar, enter, it looks like nothing's there. Not a problem. However, I'm going to go to D2. It looks like nothing's in there. I hit the space bar, I hit enter, and now I actually do have something in there. And same with E2. So you want to do make sure those are empty, because what we're going to do now is we want this Patterson Medical Center to be centered all the way across the page. Remember, like we did in Word. So it's a little different in Excel. We do have these tools up here that allow us to align it center. However, that's relative to the cell. We want to do it to the whole page. So there is a special tool for that. First thing we have to do is select our text. I'm going to select A2 over to J2. Okay, that's going to be all the way across. If I look down the bottom, actually, there we go. If I scroll down, J is the furthest column I have anything entered. So that'll be the end of my page. To make this centered across the page, I have to use this tool. It's called Merge and Center. Right there. What that's going to do is merge the cells together and make them one big cell, and then it's going to center. So let's take a look at it. Now, You may have been able to do it. I can't. Why? It's telling me, give me a warning that it's finding something in some of the cells other than Patterson Medical Center. In other words, those spaces are going to be wiped out. I'm going to say, okay. And what happened is, if you have anything, including a space in any of the other cells, then it will take the furthest left-hand side, in this case, Patterson Medical Center, and that will wipe everything else out. So I'm going to undo this. Let's say instead of a space here, I had the word hello. Oh, spell that one right. And I did it again. Over to J here, merge and center. I'm going to get the same error. Let's see how it took out hello. So whenever you use merge and center, everything else except whatever's in the furthest to the left needs to be empty if you want to keep it. So you can move it, but when merge and center is being used, it will wipe everything else out. There's another way people will do this. And let me take out the hello. I did an undo. So they'll say Patterson, go to the next column, medical center. And then you can even move those over some. So it kind of approximates it. But now if you say, okay, no, I've just learned this new tool, merge and center. I really want to do merge and center with this title. And I merge and center. Here comes that error because I have content in 2 of the cells. So it took the furthest one to the right, which was the word Patterson, and wiped out everything else. So see how that works? So just keep that in mind as you use it. I'm going to do a couple quick undos here to get back to where we wanted. Manually wipe out those spaces so I don't get that error. And this is the way it should work. There it goes. So just keep that in mind. We're editing. For a lot of titles, especially across the top, it's pretty much empty, so you never run into that problem. What'll happen later on, though, is you see we only went to column J. Later on, you might put something over here in column K. As you can see, the little lines for the columns are missing here in row 2, and that's an indication that it's merged. Also, if you're not sure, just click on it, and you'll see the tool merge and center is grayed out. So let's see. Let me try refreshing my screen because somebody's having trouble seeing my screen. Let's see if this works better. So is my screen active now? Sorry about that. So here's what was happening. So if I try to merge and center with those words in there, I get an error. Say, oh, well, okay. And see only the word Patterson. So that's why they have to be in the same cell. It's almost like A2 to J2, merge and center. And like I said, the indicator was always that it's light gray. So if it's not, then it's not merged and centered. And the reason I say that is there's some other times where you won't see those little marks. See here how the, like between C and D, there's no little gray line. It's interrupted. That's an indication. There are other things that can cause that. But in this case, it is because my merge and center is depressed. All right, because this is our title, I want to enlarge it. So like in Word, we have the increase font and decrease font, and it works exactly the same way. I can push it up to go up, or I can use the pick list and I want to make it 16 points. And then you should see what happens is the font itself was too big. So it automatically increased the height of this row. Otherwise, it's cut off like that. So as I increased it, it did an automatic adjustment to make room for it. So again, that's an undoable function. If for some reason you didn't want it to do that, you can just hit undo and it will get rid of that change, and then your text will be a little bit cut off. You have to adjust it. All right, so the other title I have, the subtitle here, is balance sheet. So from A4 to J4, I'm going to do what I did before again. I'm going to select merge and center once I select A4 through J4, like that. I'm going to make this font larger, but not as large as my other one. I'm going to go 12 points. And this one, we use the underline. So it'll be a little underline. Just like that. Okay. The other thing I want to do is up here at J1, I want to put the date. So I'm going to type in 01/26/22. You'll see what the computer does is it automatically updated or changed my date to 2022. Also, it didn't do the math. I used a slash, and those slashes are division. Why didn't it do the math? Well, there's no equal sign. Because remember, anytime you wanted to do math or a function, you have to use an equal sign. So just for funsies, if I put an equal sign 01/26/22, that's the number. 0.001748. That's 1 divided by 26 divided by 22. So for a date, you can do this. And then why did it go to 2022? Well, if I click on it, you'll see my date here. You've got long date and short date and more number formats. So if I click on more number formats, you'll see here's the date style, date category. And then here are all the types I can select. And of course, it's showing March 2012, which is just filler. It's just a style to look at. And depending on how you want it to show, you can do here. If I wanted to show just the month, date, and 2-digit year, I can select this one here. If I wanted to figure out the day of the week and put the day of the week and spell out the word for January, I can select that one. Or the way it's currently set is a 4-digit year. So that's, again, up to you. You can click OK, and it gives me the 4-digit year. If I want to show the date and the day of the week, I can do this, but then you'll see it has to stretch out column J to use that. Okay, so I'm going to go back my number formats, and I'm just going to use the 4-digit year. Now you could use a 2-digit year, that's fine. If you're going back though 22 years, you'll run into that problem that it used to be 1999 and 1998. So sometimes a 2-digit year could cause problems when doing math. Let me do one thing real quick. So even if I did the short date, so I only did the 2-digit year, and I click on it, it'll display the 2-digit year, but it has an understanding. It is not 1922. You can look up here, and it's 1/26/22 or 2022. So it will still store the 4-digit year, but only display the 2-digit. So I'll leave it like that as an example. All right, so let's start working with some of the math. So over here on the left-hand side, we've got our current assets. What's happening is we can't see the whole word asset. So there's a couple ways to deal with that. One is in cell B10, right next to current assets, I can hit the delete key. And what's happened is when we copied, somehow a space was included there. And so it wiped it out, or was covering it. So I'm going to undo. So that's why you can only see current A. And when I click on A10, I can see it says totally current assets. Well, that's that little problem of, even though it looks empty, there's something there. So I don't know what it is, but I don't want it. So I can just hit delete. That's one way to do it. Another way is to stretch out column A, and then it doesn't matter what is in column B. The only thing is, for this worksheet, I kind of want that overhang. So that way the word assets is connected to the categories down below. So I'm going to delete that. So it should come up like that. Now, in column B, row 11, there's cash and cash equivalents. Well, that's definitely not showing, so I need to stretch that out. I'm going to click between the B and the C and wind it up. As I'm widening it up, you'll see there's two measurements. How much I'm widening it in pixels and also in points. So if you know the length of your widest entry in points, you can do it to that number. Or just most people just eyeball it. Or like I said yesterday, give it a double click. In this case, the double click works because there's nothing longer in that column that's going to be a problem for any of these items. All right, so our next thing is these numbers. So these are figures somebody keyed in here. You'll see a bunch of pound signs. And if you remember from yesterday, the pound signs just mean it can't show the entire number, so it's not going to show anything. So again, it's just a matter of stretching it out. There we go. These are dollar figures. So everything down below in column C is a dollar. So I'm going to click on column C and select the entire column. I'm going to change my display here, but you will also notice Patterson Medical Center starts in column C. So if I change it to dollars, is it going to put a dollar sign there? No. The computer is smart enough to know that if you have a label, which Patterson Medical Center is our label, that it's never dollars. So it won't try to put a dollar sign there. And I'm going to use accounting. And sure enough, it did it right. So you'll see I got dollar signs all the way down, but not with Patterson Medical Center. So, there's certain things built into the system, and that's one of them, that words never get dollar signs before them unless you key them in manually. All right. So here's their current assets, all the things they own. Down below, we want to do a subtotal. So I'm going to put in a label here. I'm going to make it bold. And just like with Microsoft Word, you can either click bold before or after. I'm going to do it before. I'm going to say total current assets. Then I want to add up all the numbers above it. So as I mentioned yesterday, you can use the sum function. So there's a couple ways to get to it. One is if I change my ribbon to the short ribbon, it's right up here. So I can just click it, and the computer's going to lasso the nearest stack of numbers. In this case, it's correct. It's C11 through C18. And you can see that C11 colon C18 down below. And there it is. It did the math. So most people do that. I have a tendency, I think I told you this before in Word, I don't like to take my hands off the keyboard if I can avoid it, because I can see everything that I need to add up. In other words, I can see C11, and I can see all the way down to C18 or C17. I just would normally just type it real quick, sum, left parenthesis, C11 colon C, and I'm only going to go to 17. It goes to 18, it includes it, but 18 is always going to be blank. It's just there for keeping our total separate from the numbers. Make it a little easier to read and find. And there we go. I want that one to be bold too. So I'm going to click on the bold B at the top, and I'll make that one bold, just so they match. Another common technique for totals is to make them aligned a little differently than the numbers and the categories that are above them. So I'm going to click on cell B19. That's my total current assets title. And I'm going to use my tools up here. And this time I'm going to right align it. So if you remember, in Word, we had the right text align. We didn't use it very often. In Excel, you're more likely to use it. And when I click it, you'll see how it really puts these two things together. All right? It's just kind of handy that way. And then when you're looking at your worksheet at a glance, you kind of see these are grouped together, these numbers up here. And then this sums it up. And there you go. So if you look at it like this, if we're just looking at current assets, I'm sure you've heard the phrase bottom line. Just tell me the bottom line. What's the bottom line? Well, literally, that comes from worksheets like this, where these numbers up here are helpful. But all you really want to know is, what's the bottom line? The bottom line is our total current assets is $382,470. So that is literally the bottom line. It's also become figuratively the bottom line for current assets. And there we go. So now down below, we've got fixed assets. As we use our fixed assets, we're going to do the same thing. We want to remove the whatever it is. It's probably space here at B21. So I'm just going to hit the delete key. And there we go. I am going to come here to my numbers, and my numbers are not aligned correctly. So I'm going to select, oops. This group here. Oh, let me take a look here. Okay. And what I want to do is I want to just select from 32,000 down to 118,000, but I can't. Watch what happens. I select here, but as I go further, look what happened. It tries to grab the text. This is the problem with merge and center. Somebody has taken cell B27 and C27 and merged them together. And so now I can't select this cell by itself. So we're going to fix that. I'm going to select B27 down to B29. Those are the three offenders. And you'll see it even push their numbers over. So not a problem. All I have to do is select them and click on merge and center. I unmerged them. How can I tell? Well, one thing is it's grayed out, but also now I can see I have cells again. This little light gray line between column B and C goes all the way down. So that's an indicator, and that's how you clean it up. I do want to widen column B even further now to accommodate all the way over equipment. So what's happened is the numbers that were supposed to be here got pushed over into column D. So how do you move the numbers? There's a couple of different ways in this case. One is straightforward. Select the numbers, even though they're pound signs. I know when I move them over, they're going to clean up. And I'm going to cut, which is Control X, to get my marching ants. Click on C27 and paste. And see how they came over? I'm going to undo. There's another way to do it. The other thing I can do is I can delete these cells. So I'm going to select the cells again. It's C27 through C29. And on the right-hand side here, I've got an option for cells, and I can delete. Here's the problem. It fixed these, but I don't know if you notice over here on the right-hand side, it adjusted these over here. So in that case, this would not be a good way to do it because it's going to cause problems later on. So that, in this case, I would use the cut and paste. The difference is the cut and paste does not remove the cells. It removes the content of the cells. See, the cells stay the same and everything to the right stays where it is. All right, on these cells here, you'll notice my formatting didn't go all the way down. That's because when I formatted column C, those 3 numbers were in column D, so they didn't get formatted. Well, that's okay, because there's another change I want to make. I noticed my numbers are a little jumbled horizontally, and the reason is up here, I can tell the alignment is off. So I want to align the text right, and then the numbers should come up. While I'm here, I'm going to select the accounting again. And I'm going to change up accounting to a currency and then go back to accounting, and that'll clean it all up. And then align it left, so the dollar signs all line up. Okay, down below, we want to do another title. So a couple options. I'm going to do total fixed assets. I can type it out, or because this is up here formatted with total current assets and the sum, I can select cell B19 and C19, and I can copy it and drop it down here to B33 and paste. Or I could have typed it again. Now I happen to know that this cell C33 is not going to be right. And in fact, look, it tried to add up C25 to C31, which is only that right there. So it missed some. That's okay, because I can edit the sum function just by clicking on it, coming up here to the function bar, and where it says C25, I can change it to C22. Ah, that worked. It lassoed the right ones and hit enter. Now, once again, my number is too big, so I need to stretch out C even further to see it. There it is. The other way is if it's wrong, that's okay. If you're in a hurry and you like to use the sum button, you can just delete it. I'm going to turn back on my short ribbon to see it. And there's the sum feature. Hit enter, and it's got the right one. So you copy and paste it, and then delete the one that's wrong and just re-enter the sum function. The computer figured it out. Why do it that way? Well, one thing is the formatting is correct. So it's bold, and they're set up just like the one above. So you don't have to worry about, how did I format this again? You know, what font size? Oh yeah, 9-point bold veranda. Now, let me go down here. Is this right? 9-point bold veranda. You don't have to do all that because you copied, pasted it, and all you have to do is fix what you need to fix. The other thing we need to change is where it says total current assets, it's going to be total fixed assets. So the only thing I have to change is the word current. So I've selected on cell C, or pardon me, B33. There's my total current assets. I can just double click the word current, type in the word fixed. That way you don't type the whole thing over again. See how that worked? So that is one way of carrying over the styles. We're going to go to the right now. And we are going to, well, before we do that, we're going to do a total of the total. So we have the total current assets and the total fixed assets. Down below on cell B35, I'm going to put in caps, total, fixed, and current assets. This one, I'm going to make bold. I made it capital, all capital letters, because this one's going to be a combination of these two numbers, the number in C33 and the number in C19. All right. So it's kind of like the total of the total. So that's why I made it capitalized. So it kind of stands out. You can also make it bigger. You can change the color. You can italicize it. You know, anything to make it look a little bit different. So in this case, I can't use the sum. The reason is if I hit the sum function, what it's going to do, it's going to run to this, and it's not going to select the whole category, the whole set of numbers. Even if it did, if it selected them all, here's what's going to happen. If it did that and I hit enter, it's actually doubled the number. The number's half that. Why is it doubled? Well, it's including these totals here. So this total is all of this together. Well, sum doesn't distinguish between those two. So that's okay. Here's the easy way to do it. You just put an equal sign and then click on the first cell you want to add together. In this case, it's C33 plus, and go up here to C19. And you'll see it says C33 plus C19. Hit enter. And there you go. I told you it was half that, 6 million. See how that works? So you can change, or you can add up the totals. All right, I want to make this one bold too, because that's an important number. And there they are. So this is the easy way to do it. I want to say the hard way, just for fun. You know, I've known people who will, if they know how to do it, they'll do it the hard way. Why? So nobody else can easily figure out what they did, and they know what they've done. So here would be the easy way, I mean the hard way to do it. So I'm gonna delete that. So I'm gonna say equal sign sum, left parenthesis, and instead, you know, just taking the total, I'm gonna have it re-add this total. And then close parenthesis, plus sum, left parenthesis, down here, these numbers, close parenthesis. I hit enter, it's the exact same number, right? In fact, let's say that our cash goes up to $10,000. Well, it's 100,000. There we go, 10,000. So it went up to 10,000. Well, all the numbers are going to update. This total is going to update just like it would if it's added. It's exactly the same number. But if somebody clicks on here and says, well, let me see how they did this. Whoa, look at this. It looks complicated. It's really not. It's more complicated than it needs to be, but some people like to do that. So I'm going to go back. I'm just going to make this equal sign C33 plus C19. And this time I just typed it. And there we go, much easier. And I think it is important to think about who's going to need to look at this and maybe understand it, because one of the ways you can understand a worksheet and what it's presenting is by clicking on the formulas. So I say, oh, okay, the total fixed assets and current assets, what is that? Let me see. And I click on it, and automatically I can see, oh, okay, it's the total of these two together. I get it. Right. All right, now that makes sense. You know, sometimes the English, the text doesn't explain it well enough, but the numbers never lie here. So, or at least the formulas. So there you go. So that gives us basically subtotals and a grand total. So any questions on that? All right. So, as I said before, like Microsoft Word, it's true in Excel, there's 2 or 3 ways of doing the same thing. If you ever take the Excel certification exam, once again, it didn't matter how you decide to do it. If it asks you in the test, add at cell C35, the amount that includes the total fixed assets and current assets, then you could do it either way. And as long as this number comes out accurate, it doesn't really care what method you used. All right. And then the advantage to doing it like this is we have the ability to make changes later on. And we're going to see that when we're all done. Before we take a break, I want to make this sheet the results of the year 2021. So I want to rename the sheet 1 to 2021. So I'm going to double click the word sheet 1, rename the sheet to 2021. So this is last year. I click OK, or you can hit enter and you're done. All right, it's looking good. So it is 6:52. It'll be break time. We'll take 10 minutes, come back, and at 7:02, we'll do the right side, our liabilities. So we're back. All right, so someone asked during the break, if the numbers are right aligned, then why are the dollar signs to the left? That's the style I used for accounting. So I'm going to select this group of numbers again. If I would have done currency, there's a left aligned currency. All the numbers shuffle to the left with a dollar sign. When you use accounting, it kind of overrides whatever alignment you've used, but it puts the dollar sign at the far left and then the number aligns to the right. One advantage to this is you can see that all the decimal places line up, and that can be important. So we'll get into that a little bit later on, because you can turn those off or leave them on. So you got lots of options to choose from. Okay, so as long as you're using counting, that's the way it's going to look. If you prefer, there's no difference in the numbers and the figures if you make them currency. I think I said yesterday, though, I prefer it with the accounting, just because the dollar signs sometimes can look like numbers, depending on the font you're using too. It could be possibly confusing. So what I think is when you're trying to make a worksheet for somebody to read, you want to make it as easily read as possible. All right, so now on the right side here, we have the current liabilities. So in this case, again, in F10, I have the label liabilities, but you'll see in G10, there's something there I need to delete. Just hit the delete key and it's gone. You'll see that replicates itself down below. The other thing I want to do is I want the notes payable and the dollar amount to come underneath the word liabilities. So again, they're offset. Well, here's a chance now to use either cut and paste. So I can select Control X for cut, or Control V and Control V to paste. Or because this is as far as I go to the right, I don't have any numbers here to the right. This time I can actually use the delete cells and no problems. So I'm going to select cells G11 through G17, come up here to my cells tool, and I'm going to tell it to delete them. And there they go, and everything's shifted over to the left. See how that works? So that's okay this time. Also, cut and paste works just fine. Once again, I need to widen the column G to read all my text underneath it. There it goes. And this time, rather than just working on this paragraph, I'm going to go down and do the same for the income taxes. So where it says income taxes on cell F21, I'm going to go to G21, hit the delete key. There we go. You can see the whole label. I'm going to select the two cells G22 and G23 and delete cells again. Oops, just delete. All right. Now, long-term liabilities and net worth are over to the right. So what I want to do is I want long-term liabilities to line up with income taxes, but net worth is actually a separate thing that I want to put down below. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go to cell G27 and G28, and again, I'm going to delete the cells. If you delete the cells in income taxes, and that was a last maneuver, if you're using a desktop version, and it worked here too, I can click here to F26 and tell it to redo, Control Y. and that works too. So just cut and paste. All right, so let's go back up here now to current liabilities. Oops, one more thing, okay. So now that I have them all aligned, I can click on column H and do my accounting again. So I'm going to switch to the accounting style. And there they are. Net worth is going to kind of be separate, so we're not worried about that right now, but it did do the numbers for income taxes and long-term liabilities and current liabilities. You will see under accounts payable, past due, there's a dash. And if I look in the function bar here, it's a 0. So that's when you're using the accounting, zeros are represented by dash. Okay, it's not a keyboard dash because that would be text, right? So that's the difference. If I type in a dash there, see, that works differently. But just know, whenever you see that dollar sign on the left side and it's just a dash there, that's meaning 0, it's empty. Okay, so now down below, I want to have total current liabilities. I can just type it out. And then I'm going to use the sum function. And you can type it or use the tool here. And it's going to add them up. There we go. Just a note on the sum function, you'll see it went to H18. There's nothing in H18. So for this worksheet, that's fine. If you think you might have something in there that you don't want to add up, then you can restrict it and tell, no, I just want you to do this. I want you to do the sum, but I only want to do through G17, like that. Here, by the way, if you do decide, oh, there's a dash there, I'll put the dash there too. You'll see you lose the accounting format because it's text. So only the computer gets to do the dash with the accounting format. All right, I want my total liabilities label to look like my total current assets label. Well, luckily, just like in Microsoft Word, we have the format paintbrush. So here's the good news. I can click on my total assets, which is cell B19. Click the paintbrush. Got it. And click cell G19. And there, it carried it over. I can do the same thing for C19, which is my total. Click the paintbrush and click on my total current asset total. Or, pardon me, total current liabilities total. And there we go. I can't do them together because actually the formats for these two cells are different because this is a word, a label, and it's set to right align, and this one's set to accounting, bold, and it's got a different kind of alignment. So that's why I did them separately. All right, now we're ready to income taxes. Here's a problem. If I put my total here, it's going to be right on top of long-term liabilities. And the pattern I've established is to always keep a space in between, a row in between the different categories. So what I need to do is shove everything here down. So two ways to do it. One is I can cut it and paste it, or I can do cells and insert. Actually, before I do that, I want to do these three here because I want to insert 3 cells from F25 to H25. And then I have an option here. See, I can insert the cells and shift everything to the right, or insert cells and shift everything down. So what that's going to do is the last one, or the latter one, insert cells and shift down. It inserted 3 blank cells for my title, and it pushed everything down below 1 row down. See how that works? So once again, I'm going to do total income taxes. I'm going to put in my formula for sum. That's good. And now I'm going to use my format paintbrush, because total current liabilities is the same formatting as the other one. I can now use this as my source for my paintbrush and click on total income taxes and do the same for the number. Ta-da, and they're exactly the same. All right, I mentioned we have net worth down here. So here's what happened. Somewhere along the lines, I pushed the names down. They're offset from their totals. I'm going to widen column I so you can see their totals. So I want to delete this cell. And I'm going to tell it delete cell and shift up. Even though it says cells plural, I'm only selected on one, so that'll be fine. There we go. So they're lined up again. And other long-term liabilities, I want to insert a new row, but actually this time I want to insert 2 rows. So I'm going to do is select 2 rows. I'm going to select from G30 to I30 and then down to I31. So see, now I have 6 together. And now when I tell it to cells, insert, shift cell, or insert cells and shift down. That's a tongue twister. Now I get double the number down below, which is what I wanted. All right. So good. So now, as you can imagine, total long-term liabilities. You notice I spelled it wrong. So here's what will happen. At the end, you can run a spell check. So unlike Word, it's not necessarily going to identify incorrect spellings, even if you really blow it. So the desktop version, the laptop version, actually would. It put a little red underline there. So just so you know, before you turn something into the boss, always run a spell check, because little things happen. Here's the other thing that you can do, and I do this a lot, because nobody makes a typo on purpose. So just to be sure, rather than me typing this again, I know long-term liabilities is spelled correctly. So I select it, I Control-C to copy it, and now I can start typing total and then paste. See how that worked? So while I was typing the word total up here, I Control-V, if I do it again, it'll show twice now. Control-V pasted in the text correctly. So that's a little trick you can use. If it's a funny spellings, there are sometimes words you're going to copy, and you don't want to spend the time to make sure you copied them accurately or you typed it accurately. Just copy something that's already correct and make a quick modification to it. So we slipped in the word total. We're going to do a sum. And as you can see, I'm bouncing back and forth to my ribbons here, because the sum button's on one but not the other. And once again, switch back so I can get my format paintbrush. Format, long-term liabilities, and then the total. So once again, under this format, I need some more space in column H. So I just stretch it out. So sometimes you stretch as you go. One of the drawbacks, though, is if it's too big of a number here, like now we're talking the millions. So up here at notes payable, you see it looks like it's over, I mean, there's too much space here between the $ and the number. But it works out because they're all right aligned. And so when you look at the worksheet as a whole, it kind of makes more sense that way. The other way to deal with that, and this is not too severe, sometimes it gets pretty severe, is you can move some of your categories around, and that'll keep you from doing that. In other words, long-term liabilities, I could have shifted it over maybe to another column, and then it wouldn't look so bad in the first column. Okay, so let's go down here. And once again, I want to insert G32 to I32. And we're going to insert cells and shift down. So that way, I can now do, in capital letters, total liabilities. In cell H35, I want to add up the different liabilities. Now this time, I've got 3 numbers to add. So no problem. I'll start off with an equal sign, because you always have to start off with an equal sign. By the way, one of my habits with Excel, bad habits, is I get so excited about my formula and start thinking about it. A lot of times I do forget to put in that equal sign and immediately realize my mistake after I hit enter, but no problem, you can just edit it and fix it. So the first is cell H31 plus H25. Those are totals, right? Plus H19. And there's my total of our liabilities. Okay. You'll see here in the formula bar, it's H31 plus H25 plus H19. I could also have done it H19 plus H25 plus H31. In addition, it doesn't matter the order. So either way works great. I'm going to click over here to my total current assets, and I'm going to use my format paintbrush to adjust my labels, and same with my total of my total number. All right. So here we go. So now we have our total assets, current assets, and our total liabilities. Up at the top here, you'll see the current ratio. It's at cell D6. In cell E6, we're going to insert a formula to figure out the assets to liabilities ratio. So we're going to use division. To do so, we're going to start off with an equal sign. And I'm going to click on my grand total assets, which happens to be C35. And then I'm going to use the slash, which is the division. And I'm going to click on liabilities and hit enter. So we have a total current asset to liabilities ratio of 2.808. So that kind of tells you, what you owe as the Patterson Medical Center, what it owes and what it's got coming in, and whether it's profitable or not. You'll notice it says current RAT. I don't want to turn that in. We don't have a current RAT here. It's being cut off because this formula here is now taking up some space. So what you can do, I can widen out column D if I wanted to, or because this is only one cell, I can make a special exception here. Up at the top in the alignments, what you can do is you can tell it to right align the text. See what it did? Now there happens to be something here in cell C6 that I want to get rid of, so I just hit delete, and there it is. So now for the text current ratio, it overwrites column or cell C6. Well, that's okay, there's nothing there. The other option to this, by the way, if you didn't want to do that, you can shrink down your font like that. The downside, of course, is now it's getting hard to see, it's microscopic. So I'd rather just overwrite it or stretch it out, either way like that. What you'll find though is this one is not too bad, but if you want it to fit vertically on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, you'll start running out of room. And if you make everything too wide, you'll end up on 2 sheets when you really want it on 1 sheet. There is another font, by the way, that is really good for that purpose. If you look in your drop-down list, sometimes you will see a font that says like Arial Narrow, or I don't have it on this one, I thought we did, but anything that says narrow. And what they did is they took the font, but they squished it in. There's another one, Helvetica Narrow. So it's the same height, it's just the width. It's adjusted, and that way it fits more in a cell and still has a nice height and legibility. All right, so that's the division. Now remember when I said when we're adding things up, it doesn't make a difference on the order. This one it does. So this is the assets, C35, to the liabilities. So assets divided by liabilities. If I did it the other way around, I get a totally different number. When you're working with Excel, the orders of operation makes a difference. So let me give you an example here. You may remember this from math class. If I had a formula here and I wanted to say 5 plus 7 times 2, what's the answer going to be? Okay, there's 2 ways people will answer that. They'll either say it's 14 or 19. Well, let's find out. Oh, 19. Oh, it's currency. Shrink down my zeros. Yeah, so it's 19. Why is it 19? Well, most people read it from left to right. 5 plus 7 is 12 times 2. Oh, that's 24. But wait, it's 19. The order of operations is multiplication comes before addition. So what it did is it did the math first by going to the multiplication. 7 times 2 plus 5. Oh, that's 19. So again, if you've got kids around, you can see if you can trick them with that one just by putting in the wrong order. It's not the wrong order, but it's just the tendency is to do that. So I don't know if you recall, the phrase was my caps aunt. Oh, wait a second, sorry. Please forgive my Aunt Sally. And that stands for parentheses. Oh, I messed up. It's not forgive, it's excuse. And exponents. E is for exponents. It's supposed to help you remember it. I can't even remember the thing to remember it. So parentheses, then exponents come first. Then multiplication, then division, okay, and then arithmetic, and then subtraction. So what that means is addition and subtraction always come last. So that's why it's 5 plus 7 or 5 plus whatever the result is comes last. You can override that with parentheses, meaning, let's say I really wanted it to be the other way around. what I can do is tell it, all right, I don't want you to do the multiplication first. I want you to do the addition first. So I'm going to put the addition in parentheses. So parentheses rule everything. The computer will always do that first. So now it knows, do the 5 plus 7 first, and then multiply that by 2, and we get 24. So that's the, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, way to remember it. Just for Excel purposes, you have to remember, we don't use a lot of exponents, but multiplication we use a lot, and division. Arithmetic and subtraction, those come up a lot. So if you're ever combining those, it does make a difference on how you write your formula. And if you ever want to be sure something is calculated first, put it in parentheses. So, even if I wrote this correctly, so it would be equal sign 7 times 2 plus 5. And I want it to come out to 19. Okay. Actually, it was the other way around, right? So if I wanted to do the multiplication first, I can put it first and then do the addition later. Now it reads left to right. So that's how we came up with 19. All right, so that's a little math refresher. It does come up in Excel. It's kind of picky that way. So I'll just delete those. And the best way to remember it is always check your numbers. Take a look. Like, does that make sense? Like in this case, it came with a whole number. If it came out with a fraction, oh, something's wrong. It's supposed to be a whole number. Current ratio should be a whole number. Or these numbers are way off. But I can see just by looking at it, 6 million is a lot more than 2 million. So we're in good shape. It shouldn't go below the decimal. All right. Down below here, we have our net worth calculations. So this is the doctors who own the medical center. Oops, too far. How much they are worth currently. And they're going to be listed on our balance sheet just so they know where they stand. So I want to make this its own little kind of like a category in the sheet. So I want to slide it down. So I'm going to select cells G36 through I36. Go to my cells, insert cells, and shift down. All right, so the net worth, I want to use the same formatting I used for my labels for total liabilities. Click on that. And then here are the names of the doctors. So once again, they're a little cramped in there, so I'm going to stretch out between H and I so you can see their credentials. And here's how much they're worth. So somebody keyed that in. I'm going to change that to accounting. There we go. And then I'm going to do a total. This is already typed for me here. So rather than retyping it, I'm going to Control X to cut. Click under the last name and leave a space and paste. I'm going to use the same formatting as total liabilities. So I'll use my format paintbrush. Done. And then I want to do a sum of all their net worths together. And you'll notice my dollar it's not accounting. I could change it, but I also know I want to use my format paintbrush because of the style. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my total liabilities number, the 2 million. Click the paintbrush, and now click cell I-43. So you'll notice the accounting comes along with it. And then we have one last calculation to do before we finish this off. I'm going to click on the total liabilities and net worth. This is a calculation of the liabilities and net worth together. I'm going to Control X to cut it, and you notice it turns gray, so it means it's been selected. I'm going to put it under the net worth on cell H45 and paste. Okay, I can already tell it's overlapping where I want to put my calculation. So that's okay. We'll just right align it. So again, we've got this little right align button. It works wonders. And this time, we're not adding up. We're going to do, we're not summing up. We're just going to do an addition. So it's equal sign, the liabilities, which is found in H35, plus the I43. That's the total liabilities and net worth together. And then a quick format paintbrush to make them consistent. Now, I forgot one thing. When I use my format paintbrush, it went back to the right align, or probably left align. So that's okay. Just have to do that again. So in this case, if I was thinking ahead of time, I should have aligned it right at the very end. All right. So that's our worksheet. I'm going to go up here to the View toolbar option, and we'll get a new ribbon. So as you're looking at your worksheet, there are sometimes if you don't want to see the grid lines, you can turn them off here. This is how it would look if it printed on paper. So I'm going to turn it back on. Here's how Excel can be a little bit misleading. It looks like if I printed it, I'm going to get this grid. See the little light gray lines? It doesn't work that way. You can set up when you print it to turn them on, but it doesn't do it by default. Another way you can do is you can actually format the cells to show the grid lines all the time. What I'm going to do now is let's go back and let's make this a little more interesting here. So I'm going back to home. All right. So sometimes doing numbers and accounting can be a little bit on the boring side. So you want to spice it up. Not only that, we're going to use colors to emphasize certain things. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select cell A10 all the way down to cell I46. So it's everything we've done. Okay, or like I said before, you go to I46, click the mouse, go all the way up to the top. And what we're going to do is we're going to convert it from a white background to a light blue background. So just like with Word, we do have the option to change the background. The only thing is it says fill color instead of the highlighting. So we're going to use a light blue. The reason it's light blue is if it's a dark blue, I used a black text and it would be hard to read. So again, the same rules apply. You use the font color to be a darker color and the background color to be lighter, or vice versa. Use the dark background and a light foreground. So I'm going to use blue accent 5, lighter 80%. Okay. All right. So now what I want to do is wherever I have my labels, I want them to show up a little bit different color. So what I'm going to do here is click on the current assets, cell A10, and I'm going to also include B10. And again, I'm using my dumping paint can, but this time I'm going to click next to it, gold accent for lighter 80%. See how that works? I want to do the same thing for the current liabilities. So it's F10 through G10. And here's the shortcut. I can go up here and click the dumping paint can, Or on the keyboard, I can do a Control Y, which is redo. And sure enough, it did that. Now, as long as I don't make any other change, I can keep doing that redo all the way down. So I can select A21 to B21 and Control Y, F21 to G21, Control Y. Long-term liabilities, F27 to G27, Control Y. And just like that, all the way down. All right. Of course, let me undo. The other way to do it is you can always use the format paintbrush. So once I've turned to gold here for income taxes, I can select long-term liabilities and it'll do the same thing. So that works too. I like the redo a lot. The only thing is, sometimes you're in the middle of redo and you find a typo and you fix the typo. Now you lost your redo. You just have to do it over again by selecting the paint can and the gold. Okay, so now the other thing I want to highlight are the totals. So the totals will just really stand out because, as I said before, those are the bottom lines. So this time I'm not going to use the labels, but I'm going to change the numbers, just the numbers themselves. And this time I want to make them a yellow background. So there's a yellow there for the assets, Control Y, income taxes. And then down here, even the total of the totals. Up here at the top, the current ratio, that's important. So I want to make that one too. Because yellow, it's a dark yellow, it kind of works, even with the white surrounding it. It's kind of like a highlighter. And there we go. And then the last thing I want to do here is I want to take the net worth, and this is my bottom right-hand corner. I want to make this one a light red. So I'm going to use here, it calls it orange. I call it a red. Orange accent to lighter 80%. And then for the numbers, I want to make those yellow too. The reason I have to do the numbers after the red is if I did them first, when I select them, all the cells, it would have turned them red. All right, so there we go. There's our balance sheet. And it's all set. Any questions on how we did the balance sheet? Okay, so I mentioned this was for the year 2021, right? So let's just say, this turns out to be a great sheet. Everybody loves it. That's so wonderful because, I know all these numbers coming through. I never know where we really stand. And this presents it. Let's do this every year. Okay, no problem. What I would do is say, all right, this is working. This is a good sheet that works. Let's set up for 2022. So what we want to do is we want to duplicate the sheet. So there's a couple options to do it. One is I could create a new worksheet in the workbook by clicking this plus down here. Right? I can do this and then go back to 2021. I can go to the top. I can select all, the whole shebang, and copy and paste. However, you'll see it's taking me a few seconds here. Control C, click on sheet 1 here and paste. But look what happened to my columns. See, the columns are all messed up. So I'd have to go back and resize them all. It's a pain. So it's not exactly a true copy. So there's an easier way. I'm going to go to sheet 2. And I'm going to delete this sheet I just made. Yes, I know. By the way, if you ever delete a sheet, it's going to warn you. You can't undo this, so be sure that you want to delete it. It better not have anything good on it. And if you do it by mistake, you're really stuck. All right, so now I'm going to go over to 2021. And I'm going to right click on 2021. And you'll see here's the option to duplicate. So that's what I want. So it duplicates the sheet. What it will do is worksheets and a workbook cannot have the exact same name. So it has to adjust it. So it put a parentheses 2 in it. Well, that's fine because I'm going to rename it anyway. So I double click the 2021 2, and I'm going to change this to 2022. All right. Then I want them in chronological order. So I'm going to put the 2021 by clicking and holding the tab, sliding it to the left of the 2022. And here we go. So as 2022 goes along, and you can change these numbers to whatever happens as you go along. And it can be done by, sometimes they do it by quarter, sometimes they'll do it annually. Like in our case, we got one for each year. The other thing you can do is you can make a template. So here's how I would do that. I can duplicate 2021 or 2022. It doesn't matter. They're both exactly the same right now. But I know as we go along, this might drop. Oh, COVID hit us bad. So now we're only at 5,000. So I'm starting to make changes, right? When 2023 comes along, I know I want to start fresh. So here's what I can do. So we haven't put any numbers in for 2022. I can set this up as a template by removing all the numbers that are going to be variables, meaning all these numbers here that we started with. So from 10,000 down to 41,000 for the income tax collected, just by selecting them and hitting the delete key on the keyboard. This time I just want to delete the entries. I don't want to delete the cells, so I'm not going to use the delete cells. So that's good. I don't want to also delete the calculations, the sum, right? Because I want it to be active, and then I don't want to have to go back and do it over again. So again, let's go here to the numbers here, delete these, and you'll see everything's being adjusted. And by the way, it really messed up our ratio because we have no money coming in. All this stuff is liabilities. But we're going to delete the liabilities too. So again, not the yellows, just the blue numbers. So anything that's going to change. And then over here, the net worth. And you'll see we get a bunch of dashes in the yellows. That's telling us there is a formula there, but the answer is 0, because right now there's nothing to add up, nothing to divide, anything. We do get an error. Here's a rule in math. It's an absolute rule. You can't divide anything by 0, because anything times 0 is always 0. So you will see this error. In this case, we know, because we don't have any numbers in yet, right? So once we start putting in numbers, this will clear up. In fact, I can even do, just to test it. See, so just put in a couple dummy numbers. Yeah, it's right. But right now, because remember we divided by H35, let's take a look at H35. Here's H35. It's 0. Oh, that's illegal. So you can't do that in math, and so that's why it gives you this error. But we know as we go along in 2022 and start entering this information, it will be resolved. Okay, so we know again this is working, everything is great. And if it's something we're going to keep using, here's what I would do. I would create one more duplicate of this. So I'm going to duplicate it one more time. And I'm going to rename it to 2023. Why? I'll show you. You'll notice when we went from 2021 to 2022, I had to sit there and delete all those numbers to clean it out. Okay, so we're ready for 2022. Well, what's going to happen in 2022? We're going to put some numbers back in, some new numbers, and get some new results. Well, come to the end of the year next year, I'm going to have to make a copy and wipe them all out again. Why not just do it now and be done with it? That way, at the end of 2022, this will be done. 2023 will be ready to go. And like on January 1st of 2023, I'll make another copy of that for 2024. That way it's all clean of numbers and it's just waiting for entries. So we do that a lot, like for our timesheets. Our timesheets, we have to track certain categories for some contracts that we do. So they, have to be connected, but also every year when we set them up, we keep blank ones for the following year. And that way they're all ready to go and be entered. So that's kind of just a handy thing to do, and that becomes your template. I'll tell you what happens though is if it fails, or where it fails, is if you do make adjustments in 2022 and let's say they do a name change. So it's no longer Patterson Medical Center. It's the main Patterson Medical Center, right? Well, obviously 2023 will have to be updated too. So you have to change them at the same time. So if, like I said, if there's not going to be any changes, like that's unlikely to happen, just keep it there. If you do need to change it, that's okay. When at the end of the year, you say, okay, I know we did some changes, like we got the name change, just delete 2023. If 2022 has been updated, make a copy and then delete out the numbers like we just did. And that still works too. So it's not an automatic because things do change. And the other thing that might happen is they might add another kind of asset here or another kind of liability might show up. So you might have to include those. So you want to carry those from year to year as you build on this. But anyway, that's a way you can make a template to work off. I'm going to go back to 2021 at the top. And as I said, when I open it up next time, here's where it will be. And it'll be ready to go. So any questions about that? It's kind of handy. And that's the good thing about Excel, and I like this a lot, is once you have it working, you got to work out all these numbers and you make sure the math is right. And sometimes it can be complicated. But once you get it working, it makes a great template, like in this case, from year to year, from quarter to quarter. Instead of having to do everything from scratch again, you basically just copy what you can over, paste it, and then make adjustments. And then everybody thinks you're a genius because you got it done so quickly. We had a student who went in and used that technique and set them up for, I think it was, they're keeping some track of something every month and just copying and pasted it. And he got it done in like 2 hours or something. And they expected it to be a week. And they said, wow, how'd you do that? That's great. And he said, oh, just a little technique we used. And he explained it to them and they didn't know about it. And he said, oh, that's wonderful. And I said, well, you should have made it sound like it was a lot harder than that. If it makes it sound like it's too easy, they don't appreciate it as much. They just think, oh, well, that's easy. You knew the trick. So I said, you should have gussied up your explanation a little more. So I was just joking. But that is an advantage with Microsoft Excel. And then, if you have different branches, like here's Patterson, so maybe there's one in Modesto, and somebody over there sees it and says, oh, that is a great thing. Can we get a copy of that? Shoot them over a copy, then they can adjust it for themselves, and it goes on and on. If you think that's the case, you can always sign it. And what you do is like down at the bottom, and there's also, we'll get into this when we do the printing, there's a header and a footer. And you can put down here, worksheet design, but you got to spell design right, by an here. So you can put your name on it. And that way, what you're saying is if they have problems, they can come talk to you, or you want to get credit for it. So if anybody makes changes to it and tries to claim it as their own, you got your name on there. And certainly they can delete it, but at least they have to know that they're doing that. It is a good idea sometimes too to know who made what sheet, because when you have questions or if you have recommended changes, if you don't know who made it, you can ask somebody else. No, they'll have no idea. All right, well, with that, we are done for the evening. Have a good night. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 6.